grab your seats. Come on in and grab your seats. I'd like to welcome everybody. Good morning. Beautiful day. Thank you. Thanks very much. Grab a seat, grab a seat. I'm glad to have everybody here. Welcome to the Level 1 Mastering the Success Mastery Course workshop. In the next 2 hours, the goal of this workshop is to help you master Level 1, the Success Mastery Course. When you join our club, the Global Information Network, one of the cornerstones is the Success Mastery Course. The books that we recommend is another cornerstone. The major functions that we endorse and suggest you attend is another major cornerstone. Participating in both giving and receiving recognition is another major cornerstone. And of course, developing relationships with like-minded people is a really important cornerstone. And that's really the whole glue that holds it together. And if you look at our symbol, relationships is the oval around it. So it's really the glue that holds everything together. The Success Mastery course falls under the audio section of the triangle, audios, books, and functions. And it's really the basic foundation on which everything else is built, the Success Mastery course. So when you join our club, or when you encourage people to join our club, it's really important to be focusing on. If there's one thing to be focusing on and spending a lot of time on, is listening to the Success Mastery course, listening to the additional training in the Success Mastery course. There's the basic Success Mastery course, and there's additional training underneath it. And then, of course, there's the questionnaires. And the questionnaires are designed to be read. So you can print them and read them. And we have multiple choice, and we obviously have the fill in the blank. But by reading is a different dynamic than by listening. So the Success Mastery course has two basic components, which is the audios, and then there's the reading portion, which is reading the questionnaire and the test. And the third component of the Success Mastery course is these Mastering the Success Mastery course workshops. When you go to a Mastering the Success Mastery course workshop put on by a sanctioned speaker, there's basically 3 ways in which these workshops help you understand the Success Mastery course better, comprehend it better, have some new illumination on some of the techniques in the Success Mastery course or some of the concepts, or help you get some more cognitions and a greater working knowledge or greater integration in the material. And those 3 ways are, if you have a question in which you're confused about in the Success Mastery course, you ask that question and a person gives you their opinion. Not the answer, their opinion or a different viewpoint. So it gives you some additional data in which you can add into your brain or your mind so that you can have some illumination on the subject. So the first thing is you ask a question and somebody gives you an answer, which is really their opinion. The second thing you do is you get together in a group in these functions of usually 5 or 6 people. And when you ask the question, all of the other people are thinking about that question and they're adding their energy, and there's actually a mastermind created in that group. So when you ask the question to the group, everyone has to think about an answer or a response. And that goes into that mastermind, which is downloaded to everyone in that group. So even if you're just listening to one of the questions, you're getting valuable benefit from that experience. And then that person has the ability to give you a response, or everyone in the group can give you an opinion. So you can hear very different, in some cases, viewpoints on the same subject. In addition to that, what they can do is they can ask you questions to help draw out from you what's already inside. And what's already inside is the answer. You have the answer inside of you. It's really drawing out. Education, the word education comes from the word educare. And that word educare means to draw out or draw forth or draw from. So true education is not me or someone teaching you knowledge. True education is a system or a program or an environment in which the data and the knowledge is actually drawn out from you. And that's really what education is all about, drawing out. And the whole Global Information Network Club and everything that we do is to help draw out what you already have inside and make you the source, ultimately, of the data and the information so that you can figure out going forward. And you don't need somebody else. It's certainly helpful sometimes to have another viewpoint. And that's why relationships are important. But the key is not needing. Helpful, yes. Need, we want to kind of move away from. So in today's session, this is Level 1, Mastering the Success Mastery course. Some of you have the questionnaires with you. Some of you don't. That's fine. So the format here is you're going to raise your hand if you have a question on some part of the Level 1 Success Mastery course that you want some illumination on, or maybe you're a little bit confused about, or you just like some amplification on, or something in the Success Mastery course that may be particularly applying to your life and you're having trouble understanding how it works or if it isn't working or something. So you can raise your hand and I'll pick up that question, answer that question, give you my opinion and so forth. That question is something that is going to be beneficial not only to you but everyone else in the room. Because if you have a question, there's an excellent chance there's a whole bunch of other people who have thought about very similar questions. And that's very, very common. When we actually do exercise and somebody asks a question, sometimes I'll say, how many other people in the room have thought about this question in the past few months? And at least half the people raise their hand because they've thought about it as well. And the other people who didn't, I'll say, how many, if you did not raise your hand, are very interested in the answer. Because maybe you didn't even think of that question, but it is really a good question. So, it's really beneficial to all. So that's how the format will go. We'll go till noon, then we'll take a 2-hour break, and then this afternoon will be for Level 2 from 2 to 4. And tomorrow morning from 10 to noon will be for Level 3 and above. And then in the afternoon will be for Level 4 and above. So if you're here and you're Level 1, for example, this is the session for you. For those of you who are Level 2 and above, you can obviously come this afternoon. Some of you already asked me. They said, if I wanted to come this afternoon, can I go in the back and upgrade and can I get in? The answer is yes, we have room for you. So if you do want to do that, we'd more welcome you to come. Okay, questions on the Success Mastery course right here in the back.
Hi, Kevin. Okay, so question number 107, Level 1 test. It says the difference between outrageously successful people and you is what? The size of your dream and time. Can you expand on that?
The question is for clarification or amplification on a very important concept. The concept is, if you look at somebody who's outrageously successful, now how do we define outrageously successful? Well, it's different for everybody here in the room. So let's use some example. Maybe somebody who has a net worth of $10 million. Maybe they have a bunch of nice cars, they have a bunch of nice homes, they travel around first class. So they have a net worth of $10 million and they earn $1 million a year. It's pretty successful. I think we can all say that's a pretty outrageously successful person because that would put him in probably the top 1/100th of 1% of people in the world. So that's pretty outrageous. So if we look at that person and say, what is the real big difference between that person and somebody who's making $50,000 a year and is massively in debt? So you could say the difference is, well, that person grew up in a very wealthy family. You could say that person was lucky because they had the right connections through their family. You could say that person is very, very smart. They went to college, they got straight A's, they just happen to have a brilliant mind, and they're really, really intelligent. You could say, well, that person's really, really just lucky. They just got lucky. They were at the right place at the right time, and they just happened to get lucky. You could say a whole bunch of excuses as to why that person is very, very successful. And a lot of those things are valid, by the way. Maybe they were lucky enough to be born in a very wealthy family, and they had connections, and they could get into Harvard, and so forth and so on. But when we look at the real common denominator, because that's not everybody in that list, that may be 1 or 2 people. So if you look at a lot of people in that ultra-wealthy category or very ultra-successful category, what is the true common denominator that they all possess? Some of them are really intelligent, and some were born, in a Harvard alumni family. So yeah, some of that is true. But if we say, what is the common denominator of all these people? And what is uniquely different in their world as opposed to the guy making $50,000 a year? It really comes down to the size of their dream and time. So there's two elements here that you have to really understand. And this is really important. There's a difference between a dream and a chief aim. There's a big difference between a dream and a chief aim. And there's a big difference between a dream, a chief aim, and the next logical step. So if we kind of look at it like this, this is a big circle like the sun. This is the dreams. The circle's so big I can't even fit it on the wall. Dreams are very long term. Many dreams are so big it would take 2 lifetimes to accomplish. A dream could be, I want to own my own private island. A dream could be, I want to set up schools for underprivileged. A dream could be, I want to set up shelters for homeless people. A dream could be, I want to have my own private jet. A dream could be, I want to have a 200-foot Lursen yacht, $50 million. And by the way, it costs around $5 million a year to run. I can make sure you understand all you need. Your dream could be, I want to be completely financially free and independent. Your dream could be, I want to have a chain of franchises. I want to start my own franchise. I want to start my own business. I want to write my own book. Something that's long-term, something that's very big, something that's almost, at this moment in time, unattainable to you. It's so big, it's really unattainable. That's what a dream is. And dreams are dreams. Sometimes a dream is something big and specific. But generally, the dream is a series of things or events or experiences. Usually a collage. And they're very long term. Now here's you. We hear people say, that guy's just a dreamer. And dreamers go to the grave broke. And it's true. Because dreamers are here, and all they have and all they focus on are all their dreams. The private jet, the yacht, I'm going to get rich. All those wonderful dreams. That's all they think about. That's all they have. They're dreamers. The problem with that is very rarely do they ever achieve their dreams. Because without 2 other elements or 2 other steps in between the dreams and you'll always just be a dreamer. Because in this scenario, this person really doesn't have a dream by definition. They have a wish. They're hoping to hit the lottery. And how many people hope to hit the lottery and play it every single week, dreaming of hitting the lottery, dreaming of what they're going to do with the money, and never hit the lottery? This doesn't happen, does it? It's a dream, because the dream is then a wish. It's like hoping to hit the lottery. What has to occur is there has to be something here called a chief aim. The chief aim is something that you absolutely 100% believe you can achieve. It has to be believable. Yes, I can do that. And it has to have a time frame. Now, this time frame will be different for every person. Your sweet spot of the time frame is different. Some people's time frame can be 5 years before they achieve that chief aim. Some people's time frame can only be 6 months. Because if it's beyond that, then it stops being believable. Some people have a hard time understanding that it does take time to succeed. So if it's a little bit further out, their level of belief goes down. So this is different for each one of you. So a chief aim could be 6 months up to 5 years in terms of when you could realistically achieve it. Remember, the chief aim has to be big enough to excite you, but small enough that you absolutely believe that you can achieve it. And that's where the sweet spot comes in. It's going to be different for every single person. But it's still 6 months to 5 years from now. This could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 2 lifetimes. So this is big stuff. Then you have what's called the next logical step. The next logical step, which is right here, is something that you can achieve today, this week, or this month. It's something that's the next logical step on the way to achieving your chief aim. And let me just give you an example. Let's say one of your dreams is to be an interpreter, to speak a foreign language fluently, well enough to be an interpreter. Maybe that's your big dream. Your chief aim is to speak that language fluently. Your dream is to be an interpreter, but your chief aim is to speak the language fluently. You haven't learned a word in that language. You're right here. What's your next logical step? The next logical step could be, I need to buy a course on the language. Or my next logical step could be, I need to enroll in a course. Once that happens, what's the next logical step? I need to go through that course or learn a few words, or I need to be able to say a few phrases. Do you understand? The next logical step is something that is easily attainable and is always changing. But notice the next logical step is getting you closer to your chief aim, correct? And when you hit the chief aim, you're getting closer to your ultimate dream, correct? If it's monetary, maybe your dreams, let's talk about money for a second. Your dreams are the yachts, financial freedom, the private island, and all these monetary or material things. So that's your dreams. What is your chief aim? Well, maybe your chief aim is I want to make $10,000 a month. Or maybe your chief aim is I just want to become debt-free. Maybe that's your chief aim. Something that is realistic in the next 6 months to 5 years, depending on your sweet spot. Maybe your chief aim is $2,000 a month. Maybe your chief aim is getting a promotion. You with me? So your chief aim is going to be different for each person. And then your next logical step is, what do you have to do that's going to help you get closer to that chief aim? And that's where you're focusing on. But if you are standing here looking this way, I want you to imagine that the next logical step and the chief aim are both transparent. So if you're standing here looking at the next logical step, you can still see the chief aim. It's behind it. And you can still see what's behind the chief aim, which is the big dream. You with me? Okay? And this is really a magical ingredient or a formula to generate wealth or create anything in your life. So the explanation of why it says the difference in these wealthy people is the size of their dream and time is this. If this was the sun in our solar system, and you are a planet, isn't it true that the sun has a gravitational force and it pulls things into it because of gravity? The bigger your dream, the more gravitational force it has. The reason why we say the size of your dream is important is the bigger your dream, the more force there is, or gravity, pulling you toward it. In reality, it's actually the opposite. Because when you are thinking of your dream and it's really big, what actually occurs is it is pulled toward you. That's what's really happening at the scientific physics level. If you have a small dream, you don't have a lot of pull. This is why the phrase, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you still wind up amongst the stars. When your dream is really, really big, even if you never make all of your dreams come true, the dreams were so big, you have a life that 99.9% of the people would absolutely die for. You with me? Because your dream was big. So the two elements here of super successful people is the size of their dreams. How big can you dream? Doesn't mean that you believe you're going to achieve it. A dream isn't in that belief category. But these two are. As you start achieving your next logical step, and achieving the next logical step, and the next logical step, and the next logical step, and once you hit your first chief aim, all of a sudden, these become even more believable because you're getting closer. I remember years ago, I was in a sales organization, and there was a guy who had just joined the sales organization. And I said, "What's your goal?" This is back in the 80s. I said, "What's your goal?" He says, "I want to make $300 a week in commissions." I said, "Okay. Do you think you can do that?" He goes, "Oh, I know it's a big goal, but that's my goal." Now, I'm not judging whether it was a big goal or a small goal, but in his mind, it was a big goal. I said, "Fine. Do you have a time frame on when you think you'll achieve that?" "By the end of the year." "Okay. We'll see how it goes." He says, "Yeah, I'm going to really work hard. I don't know if I can achieve it, but I'm going to really work hard." That was his chief aim. Okay? His next logical step was he had to talk to a customer. So his next logical step is, in order to make that happen, I have to talk to customers. I have to talk to a lot of customers. So I have to talk to customers. And after I talk to one, I have to talk to another one as fast as possible. And after I talk to that one, I got to talk to another one as fast as possible. Otherwise, I'm not going to hit my chief aim. So he knew what his next logical step was. It's pretty simple. His second week there, his commissions were $360 for the week. This guy was, over the moon. It was like he hit the lottery. I says, "I heard from the sales manager, Peter, that you surpassed your objective." He goes, "Yeah, I didn't know it was going to be this easy." I said, "So you hit your dream." I go, "That's great. So you're going to be on cruise control now." He says, "Oh, no." He says, "I've changed it. I want to make $500 a week." "Really?" He said, "I know it's a big goal." I go, "When do you think you can make that happen?" "By the end of the year." The next month, fourth week, last week of the month, his commissions were $600 and something. He kept changing his chief aim. But watch the amazing thing that happened this time. Remember, his $300 goal he thought was really big. And he was going to try to get it. When he got that, he goes, 500, but that's really big. I'm going to try, and if I don't, I'm not going to feel bad. Once he hit that, he was at 600. I says, now what's your goal? He goes, 1,000. I says, what do you think? He goes, easy. It's an automatic. As long as I do the work, as long as I'm focused, that is easy. Now I can see that I can do that every single week. He says, and I can probably even get to 1,500. So you see his belief changed? So he was believing already for 1,500. But when he first started, the likelihood of making 300 a week was a hope and a prayer. So your belief in these big things start growing as you achieve success. That's why we say success builds confidence. And confidence creates activity. And there's that whole momentum or success cycle. So the point here is the size of your dream is important. This is why when we do things in our club, one of the things that is consistent throughout the club, and this is why going to major functions like family reunion or dream weekend or level 5 conference in Rome. How many here? Was anybody here at the level 5 conference in Rome? Okay. Pretty opulent, right? Pretty. Pretty opulent, right? Yeah. Especially my suite. Madonna was in my suite the week before I got there. So it's a pretty big suite. It's the biggest suite in Rome. But we had an inner circle meeting there. We had a bunch of events going on there. It's pretty amazing. But the point is, we do things throughout the club to help you expand your dream capacity. We try to stretch you a little bit, right? Right? Try to stretch you a little bit over there. And to remember, the terrace on Saturday night? Yeah, with the tenors. We had 3 tenors come in, the 3 tenors, for a private recital for us. And we were on this rooftop overlooking the city of Rome. White glove service, world-class cuisine. And, people are there thinking this is an experience that I would have never had in my entire life if I was not a member of this club. And that's probably true. But now, the reality that this is what is available and you guys deserve this just as much as anybody else. And this is what is out there. If you want it. You don't have to want it. But the point is it expands your capacity to dream. Your capacity to dream is like stretching a rubber band. Once you stretch it, it can't go back to its original size. And so we always want to stretch your ability to dream, your ability to believe big things can happen in your life, because it has magnetic power. So this is why the size of the dream is important. Successful people have bigger dreams because it has magnetic force and it virtually pulls you and it pulls it toward you. And even if you and the dreams never meet, what's happening is you're achieving far more in your life than you could ever imagine. Just imagine, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you still wind up amongst the stars. That's the point. The idea of time is the second key element. And this is very different. If you look at people who make $50,000 a year and ultra successful people, it's absolutely categorically true that the people who are very wealthy have much bigger dreams. That's categorical. And you can understand now the reason why that's important. The second thing is they understand time. And this is the second thing that successful people grasp, where people who don't make a lot of money just don't get. Time is like this. I had a friend in his 80s. And he was telling me about an investment he was making in this publicly traded company. And he was telling me the reasons why he invested a substantial amount of money. He had just purchased a $12 million apartment in Manhattan for cash. And Mike Siegel, I was meeting him at his Palm Beach mansion, right on the water. And I said, hey, I'm meeting Fred. Why don't you come with me if you want to? I'm sure it'll be okay. Because I have a meeting and you're here, so why don't we just drive up together? I'll have my meeting, you can hang around, and then we'll drive back. So, Mike walks into this palace, and, his jaw is, hitting the ground, and his eyes are as big as cue balls, Mike Siegel. And he's, he's all impressed with the opulence and the money and the wealth. I mean, you could just feel the wealth. Right? For not just new money, but like for years, this is wealth, big money. But I was talking to this fella, and he was explaining to me this business, and we were chatting, and he was, getting opinions and things. And he says, yeah, KT, I figure in 12 years, the return on this is going to be amazing. He's 80-something years old. But here's the point. His concept of time was, I'm going to make an investment today, and I'm not going to see a return for 12 years. As a matter of fact, during that period of time, my investment, the value of that investment will probably go down, because you can't make an investment right at the bottom. That's very rare, and he's realistic. So I make my investment. It may go down 20%, maybe even 25%. He says, I'll reevaluate. I may even invest more at that time if that happens. Because if it's a good deal now, it'll probably be a much better deal then. But in 12 years, the potential is large. This is the distinct difference between low-income people and high-income people. The concept of time. Think about it this way. The lowest income person, if you ask him, how much money do you make? He says, I make $4 an hour. His concept of time is, for every hour, how much money does he earn? You with me? You go to somebody who makes a little more money. How much money do you make? You make $70 a day. Really? So your unit of time is day. 1 day. You go to somebody else. How much money do you make? I make $800 a week. Their unit of time is a week. You go to somebody else. How much money do you make? Well, I make $2,000 every 2 weeks. They're looking at a 2-week time. That's when you get your paycheck, right? So I get my paycheck twice a month. So therefore, I figure out this is how much money I make. Go to somebody else. How much money you make? I make $10,000 a month. Their unit of time is a month. Now, you go to somebody else. So how much money do you make? I make $500,000 a year. They're thinking a year. You with me? And if you go to very wealthy people, how much money do you make? They don't even consider it, because their understanding of time is, this year I may not make a lot, but the next year I may hit a home run, which covers me for the next 3 or 4 years. I may make $10 million next year, and then really be reduced over the next 2 or 3 years, but it all averages out over your lifetime. Do you understand? So, the size of your dream and time. First, the size of your dream, we understand that, and there's two parts of time. First one is the concept of time in terms of getting your dreams. Are you a short-term thinker or a long-term thinker? Wealthy people always understand long-term. They understand it takes time to make anything happen. If you want to get in shape, I'm going to go to the gym starting tomorrow. I remember Zig Ziglar always telling the story. He was 37 pounds overweight. He didn't think he was overweight, so he went to his doctor. He said, I'd like to get a checkup. I'd like to check my weight and height and so forth and tell me what you think. So the doctor looked at his height, looked at the chart, looked at his weight, and says, I have very good news for you. You're the perfect weight. Zig said, I am? He says, yeah, you're just 5 inches too short. So Zig had to lose some weight. And Zig tells the story. He says, I went out there and I decided I was going to run. That was going to be what he was going to do. He was going to wake up early and go for a run. So that was what he was going to do to lose weight. He was going to cut out breads, which is what he really liked, and sweet things. You know, pretty normal. I'm going to cut out sweets and breads and exercise. Okay, so that was his plan. So he went out there and he said, the first day, and I was really scared about running. And I thought, you know, I don't want to get tired. I don't want to quit. I don't want to set a goal and then not be able to achieve it. So he said, so I set it up where I went out my house and I looked, so where am I going to run? Well, you know, they have sidewalks back then. So he could run on the sidewalk. And he said, okay. So he said, I went out to his house. He said, I'm going to run on the sidewalk. And he looked down to the left and the street went straight down, you know, many blocks. He looked down to the left, and it went down a couple blocks, and there was a mailbox down there. And he said, okay, I got my plan. So the first day, he ran a block. He ran one block and stopped, and then turned around and walked home. He says, I can do better tomorrow. And then the next day, he says he ran a block and a mailbox. So his goal was, I wasn't going to go two blocks because I don't know if I may huff and puff, and what if I have to quit? So I set my goal where I'm going to go a block and a mailbox. Now, at this pace, losing 37 pounds may take a while. But his goal was very realistic. He says, I'm going to lose the 37 pounds in 24 months. And so he set a very realistic game. He set the rules up so that he could win. This all sounds familiar, right? But he understood time. And he understood that his goal was going to be achieved realistically down here. And he may not see a lot of results in the beginning. Or the results may be slow. But it was okay because it was a long-term situation. So the two elements of time are, number one, when you're doing something, are you waiting for an instantaneous result? The key word here is delayed gratification. And the second part of time is it takes time to succeed. And the part A and part B of this are almost identical. But the point is, a successful person has had a very big dream, and they've been doing this for a long time, or longer than you. So in direct answer to the question, to amplify the difference between successful people or outrageously successful people and people who aren't outrageously successful is the size of their dream and time. Basically comes down to this. A very successful person, when you look at them, they have had a big, big, big dream for a lot longer than you. In other words, they've been doing this, what's on the board, for a longer time than you. Now, think about it. You want to learn to speak French. And you go to Berlitz French-speaking school. And the instructor is there who speaks perfect French. And the instructor says to you, by the way, did you know that just 5 years ago, I came to this school not speaking a single word of French. And now, I'm an instructor. Well, what's the difference between them and you? 5 years. You with me? If you do what they did during that time, you'll be where they are. It's just time. And most people want to leapfrog. They look at somebody who's outrageously successful, and they want to say, I want to get where they are. Well, you're going to have to do what they did. So it's the size of their dream and time. If you have a real big dream, and if you do this, you will be doing the necessary activities, just like that guy was earning money in the sales organization. Because he understood, he had the dream, he had the chief aim, and that motivated him to do the actual activity. Did that illuminate? Okay, good. That was such an important question. I spent a lot of time on that. But I think that was helpful for everybody. Next question, over here.
Hello. My question is number 260 in level 1, and that would be rereading an old book versus reading a new book. Why is that important?
It's a great question. One of the points is if you have a choice, there's a basic book list, right? So if you have a choice between buying a new book and reading it or rereading one of the books on the basic book list again, something that you read maybe 6 months ago, I would suggest read one of the books on the basic book list again. And some say, well, why is that? Here's the reason why. If you want to be a master, you have to master the basics. And of course, you all remember my story about Shi Young Ming, the Shaolin monk, teaching me how to throw a punch. Where I wanted to learn the advanced stuff, and he said, we're going to work on a punch. And I said, but I know how to throw a punch. And he said, you think you know how to throw a punch. In effect, a punch is not a punch. You have to master the punch. And the idea was, I'll never forget after he taught me this, he said this, and this made so much sense to me. Because I was so impressed with all the different strikes I knew. And he says, I'm not impressed with the 10,000 strikes you know that you've practiced only once. I'm afraid of the one punch you know that you've practiced 10,000 times. And so there are basic concepts in those books that you can never really ever master. Now, as you go through life, let's say you're not in Jinn and you read the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and you read it today. Wow, great. 6 months from now, you read it again. Well, you've gone through life experiences. And every time you go through a life experience, you have new cognitions and realizations if you're in a mode of awareness, which is different than the person who says, I have 12 years experience. No, you have 1 year of experience repeated 12 times because they stopped learning, right? And a lot of times I'll talk to a trainer or a speaker or an expert who's teaching seminars and whatever, and they do a great, brilliant job. And I'll say, let me ask you a question. What have you learned over the last year that you're adding into your event? And some of them can, like Ed Foreman, let me tell you everything I've learned. Because he's constantly learning. He's constantly aware. Ron Ball, let me tell you everything I've learned. And there's other guys that's like, huh? I've been teaching this for like 15 years, KT. This is perfect. So they learned it, and then they stopped growing, okay? And it's still good stuff. I'm not saying it's bad stuff, okay? So if you're aware, if you read the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and just go through life, then you read it again, you have all these new experiences. As you read it the second time, you have new understandings, new cognitions, new realizations of that material. Also, there are things that open up as you go through life that allow you to see things in this unit of time that you couldn't see in a previous unit of time. Which is why when you read a book 6 months later, you think, I don't know where I was on this page. Because obviously I never read this page before. Maybe it was stuck together the first time I read the book because I didn't read. I don't remember that. Because if I did, I would have been applying it, and certainly I have not been applying it. So the basic data in those books, it's almost better to just focus on and focus on and focus on for a period of time anyway. That data, because every time you read a book, just like when you go through level 1 training, you go through the level 1 course and you go through it again and again and again. Okay, every time you go through the course, it's like there's new understandings of the material. And then when you go to level 2 and you listen to the level 2 Success Mastery course, and then when you go back and listen to level 1, it's like, wait a minute, did they add stuff? No, it's the same course. You're different because level 2 training released doors, if you will, or opened doors in your mind so that you can see things you couldn't see before in level 1. And this is just throughout life. Now we do it systematically in the course. It's done on purpose. And as you start going up the levels, you see it. Because when you become a level 5, all of a sudden you're told what's happening here. But there's stuff that's put in level 1 that you just will not see. But it's there, and it's basically a seed planted. And if you listen to that course 10 times, and if I ask you a question on that subject, you're going to say, it's not in there. I listened to it 10 times. Just not there. Okay. I could point it out to you. Here's the transcript. But how come you couldn't hear it? But when you get to level 5, for example, as you go through, all of a sudden now you go back and it's like, it's right there, so right in your face. It's like, how did that happen? And it's done for your benefit because we plant seeds throughout the course that open up or sprout as you go up the various training levels. So in answer to your question, there's a lot of good books out there. And certainly I would encourage people to read books and read as many books as they want. That's perfectly fine. If given a choice, if given an option, you may want to consider rereading some of the basic books again several times before we start going on. And we have some advanced books as well. There's no real right or wrong here. It's just maybe a slightly better situation because mastering the basics and focusing on that is really a basic foundational concept of success. And it also relates to this. It's a belief. And the belief is, can I play the game yet? No, I don't know enough information. I need to get some more information. I need to get a little more schooling. I need to get a higher degree. I'm just not ready to engage yet. I got to read. There's something else out there that I don't know. And so there's a difference between no. And you hear this in the course. You know enough to get into the game. You're not perfect, you never will be, but you know enough you can get into the game now. Sure, you'll drop the ball. Yeah, you'll miss the ball. Yeah, you'll make some mistakes. Good. And then be aware, learn from that, you'll be better the next time. But you got enough to get into the game and focus on the basics. Good question. Question here.
You always mention that you have to love what you do, but yet you also mentioned the Jack LaLanne example of hating what he did but loving the results. Can you explain that?
It's a very good question. Jack LaLanne, for anyone who doesn't know who Jack LaLanne is, Jack LaLanne back in the 50s was one of the first guys. Charles Atlas actually was one. Remember, how many people remember Charles Atlas, right? Okay, a couple of back then it was different than it is today. Back then everyone was skinny. It's true. The Charles Atlas course wasn't lose weight and get in shape. It was you're a skinny runt, take my course and build yourself up, put some weight on. Because you don't want to be a skinny runt and have a guy kick sand in your face and take your girlfriend. That was the ad. There was this skinny, it was a cartoon, but it was a skinny runt at the beach with this girlfriend, and this guy came up with muscles and kicked sand in the skinny runt's face and takes his girlfriend away. And the guy is like all depressed, so he goes to Charles Atlas and he puts on muscles, right? And now no one's going to kick sand in his face. So it was a different scenario than it is today. But Jack LaLanne followed Charles Atlas, and in the 50s went on television with an exercise show. And back then there were no gyms, or the only gyms were really for bodybuilders, and that wasn't very popular, and there weren't a lot of them around the country. Most people never had a health club or gym or something like that. It was like a YMCA recreational thing for kids and things. So you didn't have places to lift weights, and then the only people that lifted weights, again, were bodybuilders on Venice Beach and stuff, and it wasn't a big thing. So Jack LaLanne said, I'm going to do an exercise program for people at home, and they're in their living room. So I'm going to say, grab the chair and, move the coffee table out of the way. And so he took things right in the house and worked with a chair so that people at home could do the exercises with him right there in their living room. So he started this exercise craze, and Jack LaLanne was a very muscular guy, not a bodybuilder like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, but certainly a very muscular guy, more like a gymnast, if you look at his body. And he would do stunts for publicity. He would have himself shackled, his feet shackled, and his hands handcuffed. And I think he swam across the English Channel. He certainly did some outrageous things, like swimming from Catalina to Los Angeles. He also pulled like 50 boats He was shackled, and then he pulled these boats across the English Channel or something insane. He did these insane exhibitions of strength and endurance, and of course to promote himself. And I knew Jack. I didn't know Jack well, but I knew Jack, and he said that he got up at 4 o'clock every morning. Actually, got up at 3:30 every morning, and he was in the gym at 4 o'clock. And he worked out virtually every single day. And he had a very strict diet to keep his body the way it was. And Jack said, tongue-in-cheek, I hate exercise, but I love the results. And the idea was his focus was on the dream, was on the chief aim, was on the next logical step. The idea that did he love doing that activity? He certainly loved the results of that activity. So it was a tongue-in-cheek response, which happens to a lot of people, such as, for example, we're going fishing on a gin adventure Monday, right? So there's a bunch of gin members going. We're going up to Canada for a whole week. We get up very early in the morning, very early, to get out fishing. Now, I'm not necessarily an early riser. If I have a choice, I'll sleep to the crack of noon. So getting up early is not my favorite thing in the world. But I love fishing. So getting up, so I would say I don't like getting up. But guess what? I love getting up. So the comment from Jack LaLanne is really a tongue-in-cheek comment to help people understand when you're trying to make your dream come true, you may be doing activities that necessarily wouldn't be on your list of this is what I want to do, like wake up and go to the gym, or, I love eating sweets, so not eating sweets, that's not on my list of, things I would love. But you start to love them because of the results, and you're focusing on the results. So the activity is something you actually start to enjoy. The comment from Jack LaLanne is really an inaccurate comment. It's a tongue-in-cheek comment to get people to understand it's okay to initially do something that you would think I don't like to do, but as long as you're focused on the results. And here's a better example, but goes right along with Jack. Zig Ziglar. He started this running program, and Zig Ziglar has said this publicly many, many times. And when he started this this running program, he didn't like it. He would run that block. He ran a block in a mailbox. And he didn't like getting up early, and he didn't like running. 8 months later, he said he was traveling to Seattle to do a speaking engagement. And he had made a commitment to run every single day. And on this one particular day, it happened to be a glorious, beautiful, sunny day in Seattle, which is not, Seattle is known for rain. But it was gorgeous. And when it's sunny and beautiful in Seattle, man, it is gorgeous. You get the pine trees, you get the fresh, clean air, no humidity. It's just glorious. It really is. He says, and I was out there running, and I was running through a park. And I was running through this park. There was just a slight, gentle breeze. It was a perfect 72 degrees, sunny, not a cloud in the sky. There were people playing Frisbee. There were people sunbathing. There were people picnicking. And I was running through this park. And I realized I was having a ball. I absolutely loved it. It was the first time, he said, I realized that I actually loved the activity. So if you're going to do something in life, you absolutely have to do what you love. True. The problem is, if you were to sit down with somebody and say, what do you really love to do right now? A person would make a list. Now, if you have a big dream, in order to make that dream come true, you're going to have to do some things that ain't on your list. And they're probably on your I don't like to do list. If your dream is big enough and you're using this system here with next logical step and chief aim, it will create a situation where you actually like the activity. So again, Jack LaLanne's comment is not true. It's a tongue-in-cheek comment. Okay, I hate exercise, but I love the results. It's more of a tongue-in-cheek, like initially I hated exercise, but I love the results. But because I love the results so much, I actually like the activity now. That's really the complete comment. Eating vegetables. I remember when I was a kid, my father liked Brussels sprouts. And I don't know how anyone can like Brussels sprouts, but my father liked Brussels sprouts. I like mashed potatoes and gravy. My father likes Brussels sprouts. French fries are good. My father likes Brussels sprouts. So my mother tries to get me to eat these Brussels sprouts. And, of course, I say I don't like them. Well, how do you know? Well, just by looking at them. You know, they're green. I don't want that. She says, all right, here's the deal. You don't have to eat the Brussels sprouts, but you just have to just try one, just so you know what it tastes like. And if you want to spit it out, you can spit it out. Fine. So I eat it, and, of course, I am not going to be proven wrong. So I eat it, and I spit it out. See? I hate it. Okay, you don't have to eat the Brussels sprouts. And for then on, Brussels sprouts were something I wouldn't even think about eating. Not even consider it. I'm with Ron Ball. I had a place in Southern California right on the water. He meets me, stays with me, and I said, listen, there's this great restaurant right down the street. We can walk there. It's called Boa Steakhouse, world-famous steakhouse. So we walk to Boa Steakhouse. We sit down. We're chatting, and the waiter comes over, and he says, you ready to order? Yeah, we're ready to order. I said, do you have any specials? Yes, we do. We have a vegetable special. It's roasted Brussels sprouts. They're in season and they're fabulous. And I go, I think that's an oxymoron. Brussels sprouts and fabulous, I don't think go in the same. I don't think they go together. He says, no, they are really spectacular. If you don't like them, send them back. You don't have to pay for them. I says, Ron, do you like Brussels sprouts? He says, no. He says to me, who likes Brussels sprouts? Nobody I know. My father. I says, Ron, you want to gamble and get these Brussels sprouts? He says, sure, no problem. So we get the Brussels sprouts. Of course, we get the mashed potatoes, too. So the Brussels sprouts come, they're grilled or roasted or whatever they are. And they're cut in half, and they get a little char on them. And they look interesting, and I take one, and I bite into it, and I'm thinking, and I hate to say this is delicious. And I'm looking at Ron, and he's eating it. I said, Ron, what do you think? And he says, well, what do you think? I said, Ron, maybe we should just write down our comments. That way we're not affected by each other. He says, no. You tell me what you think, and I'll be honest, and I'll tell you what I think. I said, fine. I think they're freaking delicious. He says, me too. They're fantastic. He says, I'm thinking of ordering another amount because between you and I don't know, if that's going to be enough. And we ate the Brussels sprouts. And the point is this. Sometimes we get stuck with, I like this, I don't like this. And this is something that happens throughout life. We make postulates. We make decisions. And many of these were made early on, such as, I don't like Brussels sprouts. And that stays with you forever. I can't be successful. I'm not a good public speaker. You start making postulates in life. I don't like to exercise. I don't like to do math. I don't like numbers. I don't like computers. I don't like reading. Whatever it is. And we start, nothing goes my way. I'm unlucky. We start making these postulates, we start making these decisions, and it sets a program up forever. So one of the things that I would encourage and suggest is reevaluate the decisions that you've made in a new unit of time, because maybe it's different now than it was before. The bottom line of your question, this is a very long-winded answer, and I apologize for that, is the key here is focusing on the dream, focusing on the chief aim, focusing on the next logical step. And if you do that, the activity, even if it's something that you initially would think I don't like to do, either A, you'll plow through it with at least glee. You'll actually find yourself enjoying it because you want the results. And at some point, what you thought was an unpleasant activity, like running, all of a sudden changes to a very pleasant activity, something you really enjoy. The key is focus on your dream, your chief aim, and the next logical step, and you will be motivated into action. When you're motivated into action, many of the actions that you're motivated into are things that you have already said in your mind that you don't like to do. And it can be changed so that you are, in fact, doing what you love. Okay. Question over here.
Thank you. Question number 99 says, when defining your dream, you can do so in what three ways? Specific, general, and focus on the feeling. In the training you did in Australia, you talked about focusing on certain types of things, as certain types of goals as specific, and certain types of goals as general, depending on whether there's an abundance of them or not. Can you speak more on that?
Yes, it's a very good question. Every question in here is a very good point, because this is the foundation of achieving success in life and achieving what you want. And it's something that is innate in all of us. We all have it programmed into us. And it's true when Zig Ziglar made the statement that you were born to win, that you were designed for accomplishment, you were engineered for success, and you were endowed with the seeds of greatness. That's a factual statement. It's not just a motivational speech. It's absolutely true that in our DNA, we all have programs for achievement, for the ability to create and manifest what we want and desire. Some of it's shut off, some of it we've suppressed, but it's all there. So there are certain concepts that if you analytically know them or start to logically think about them, what occurs when we say cognition, what we really mean is a release of something you already know. It's the awakening of something that you've known all along that it's inside. So when you cognite on something, or you have this new realization, or this new understanding, or this aha moment, or we call it the light bulb goes off. Actually, the light bulb goes off. Think about, where did that come from? The light bulb comes off is because actually what occurs is you're being illuminated. The DNA actually is the electricity's turned on, and it's turned on. So now the information is released. So it's very important. So on this particular concept, what we have is you have a chief aim and a dream. So the idea of this question is, in effect, when you're thinking about your chief aim or what you want. Now, the question is what you want. Okay. What you want is generally the chief aim. Okay. So when you're thinking about the chief aim or what you want, you can say, I want a red 911 Porsche Targa convertible with tan interior, and I want the 18-inch wheels, and I want these rims. So you can be very specific, right? That's one option. Option two, I want a beautiful luxury car. That's general. Option three, if you get that Porsche and drive it, how do you feel? I feel powerful, and I feel free, and I feel fantastic because I am rubbing it in all those people's faces that laughed at me. Okay, so you could also say, I want something that's going to make me feel powerful, free, and allow me to rub it in everybody's face without saying I want a car, right? So that's the feeling.